Managing salespeople is like herding cats. Ever heard that phrase before? Want to learn how to manage your salespeople better? Stick around to learn more on today's episode of This Week in Sales. Hello and welcome to today's episode of This Week in Sales. I'm Kevin Gaither, the CEO and founder of Inside Sales Recruiting. You may recall our goal of the show is to help sales professionals with tips and tactics and techniques to help them improve their performance right now. Today's guest is Mike Brooks, aka Mr. Inside Sales, and author of The Real Secrets of the Top 20%. Mike, welcome to the show.
Kevin, thanks for having me again. It's great to be here.
We had a great show last time, but I wanted to bring you back in. Mike, what is your nightmare sales management job?
Sales management job, that's a great question. It was the very first time I was ever the sales manager. And I don't know about you, but so many sales managers that I work with, one moment they're the top rep, and then the next moment they're the new sales manager. And that was my experience. I had no experience. I had no idea what to do as a sales manager. So suddenly I was in charge of 25 inside sales reps, and that was a nightmare. What I found is that I was immediately babysitting more than I was coaching. I didn't quite know what to do. I didn't have a structure to run on, and I didn't really know how to make them better. I was hoping that I could intuitively give them some of the techniques and the things that I did that helped me be successful, and that didn't work at all. So that was a nightmare, and it was a big learning experience. And from that, I was able to develop a system, get some guidance from others, and finally understand what it takes to help a sales team not only improve, but to help them feel confident and to help them be successful, and then to coach them through that proven process. So again, the nightmare was that I had no clue, and unfortunately, many of the managers that I work with haven't had that formal training either. So there's a big opportunity there.
Well, good. Well, hopefully you'll share some of those systems today for the show. Mike, congratulations. Our show from several weeks back has received, I just found out, over 2,500 views on YouTube and over 3,000 views on iTunes. So we have some big shoes to fill today, right?
We do, and I was very pleased with how the show went. I got a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails telling me that people really got a lot out of the program. I love your emphasis on, hey, we'd like to provide you with skills and techniques to help you get better now. And a lot of people told me that's exactly what they got from the program. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Perfect. Well, for the millions of people out there that don't know, I'm going to properly introduce Mike, and of course for the over 5,000 people that already know Mike, bear with us here. Mike Brooks is the founder and principal of Mr. Inside Sales, a Los Angeles-based inside sales consulting and training firm, and author of the award-winning books on inside sales, The Real Secrets of the Top 20%, and his new book, The Ultimate Book of Phone Scripts. Mike has been voted one of the most influential inside sales professionals 2 years in a row by the American Association of Inside Sales Professional. And Mike works as an executive coach, working with business owners and VPs of inside sales, and also conducts inside sales training for frontline sales reps and for inside sales managers. Of course, you can learn more about Mike and his training efforts at www.mrinsidesales.com. So Mike, what are sales managers doing wrong today?
Well, I would say that it's not necessarily what they're doing wrong. I would just say that their emphasis is in not the most productive place. Again, if we go back to the supposition that many sales managers really haven't been properly taught how to manage inside sales reps, what they find is they default to the things that they can manage well, which are numbers. Every company has metrics. Every time I'm asked to come in and consult, I talk to the owner, the sales managers. I say, hey, do you have metrics that you're measuring? Oh, yeah, we sure do. They can tell me how long people are on the phone. They can tell me how long those phone calls are, how many leads are in the pipeline. They're measuring all of these activities. And the emphasis, in my opinion, shouldn't be as much on those activities. Now, don't get me wrong, they're important metrics to know. But here's the key, they don't drive sales. What drives sales are what your sales reps are doing and saying in the selling situations. In other words, when your sales reps are faced with the blow-offs or the objections, hey, you just go ahead and email us some information, oh, we looked at that and we're really evaluating others. In other words, those sales moments, what are your reps doing and saying? How are they reacting? How trained are they? How skillful are they? Most importantly, how successful are they at overcoming those crucial situations? That's what needs to be measured. That's what needs to be monitored. So sales managers, again, they manage and they measure the things that are easy to come by. The harder things, and again, the things that drive sales, that's where their focus needs to be.
Mm-hmm. I've used the phrase in the past, just looking at the metric, and I love that you didn't discount the metrics entirely. I'm a metrics-focused guy myself. You have to know those numbers, and by the way, for those out there, if you know those metrics and your salespeople know you know those metrics, that's not micromanagement to keep them accountable, but just using those metrics to drive your sales team is like driving in a car, looking in the rearview mirror the entire way. You've got to get in the car with that permitted driver, if you will, and inspect what they're doing when they face intersections and stop signs and green lights, etc. What do they do in the heat of the moment? Those two things together are the keys. So is it redundant if I simply ask you to bullet point then, what should managers be doing then? Being more specific here, Mike?
Yeah, let me tell you, here's the key. And I'll just address the audience now. If you're a sales manager or you're a business owner of inside sales reps, you've got a great opportunity, and that opportunity is recording your sales reps and listening in to how they're handling those situations. And Kevin, back to you, I would say that's what they need to do. What they should be doing is recording those situations and then listening to exactly how skilled or unskilled, what problem areas, where the opportunities for personal development plans are. The very first thing I ask for from any business owner is send me your recordings, and I can tell you exactly what's wrong and how we need to fix things. And it's that improvement, having that clarity, that's going to make the difference of, hey, are we going to make our numbers? Are we not going to make our numbers? How hard is it going to be? How do we train new people? How do we get production up? And again, it's that secret. You want to measure something, you want to manage something, you want a metric. My metric to you is how much are you recording your inside sales reps? That's the number that I'm interested in.
Mm-hmm. So, should we know anything about the laws associated with recording? Any advice there or guidance?
Yes, absolutely. Every state has their own laws, and I highly recommend you check with your legal team to make sure that recording is okay in your situation. If you have inbound calls, and by the way, many companies, you call AT&T, what do the lines say? You'll be connected to an agent shortly, just so you know all calls are monitored for training purposes, so they understand the importance of training. If you're taking inbound calls, you definitely want to do that. Number two, check with your legal team to make sure that that's legal. And in some states, you have to announce that you're being recorded. Here's an easy way to do that. When you call someone, you simply say, hey, this is Mike Brooks with so-and-so company on a recorded line. Can you hear me okay? And that's a great way to introduce that you're recording a phone call.
Very good, good. I could talk forever about call recording, and we could talk about reviewing game film and all that kind of stuff. But what does true leadership look like? Let's step back a little bit.
Great question. True leadership.
Yeah.
Here's the answer. True leaders lead. They don't micromanage. They don't manage from behind a desk. And they don't babysit. What do? They lead by example. All great leaders do that. And if you're an inside sales manager, what you need to do is lead by example. What does that mean? That means demonstrate that the tools and the techniques and the core skills that you're teaching, teach that they work. In other words, pick up the telephone. Help your reps close deals. If you want the immediate respect, if you want a team of sales reps to follow you, All you need to do is to help put money in their pockets. When I'm managing or was managing a team of sales professionals, I was a selling sales manager. It kept my skills sharp, it made me the leader of the team, and I could put money in my sales reps' pockets to help teach them by example. That's the key. You want to lead by examples. It's great to say, hey, here are the scripts, here are the techniques you need to use to be successful. Are you using them? Are they successful? Can you show others that they're successful? So true leadership means leading by example and helping companies and reps be successful by putting money into their pockets.
That's wonderful. I've actually, well, just this week I talked to my good friend Chad Burmeister, who's over at On24 in North Carolina, and he said the exact same thing, except for he just said, hey, we're using a new tool to help my salespeople's productivity, and I'm getting on the phone and I'm making these calls. And it is incredibly valuable, and I've done this, of course, myself, and you'll find, and you and I are big believers in scripts, you write those scripts out, but then the moment you start saying whatever it is you wrote down that you thought sounded good, or you collaborated with marketing and you wrote down this long diatribe about how we can help so and so and so and so, but when you actually get on the phone as the sales leader and start putting those words into practice, you'll learn pretty darn quick for yourself where you might need to make some improvements to help your salespeople get even better.
And let me make one addendum to that comment. Sales managers shouldn't compete with the sales teams. They shouldn't have their own commissions, and they shouldn't have their own quotas. They shouldn't compete with the sales team. It should still be the overall goal of the sales team. It should be their job to get on the phone and help make that quota by helping the reps be successful. So I just wanted to clarify that.
I've been in those situations before, and I've seen other salespeople being managed by somebody who also had an individual quota, and boy, that's a recipe for disaster, because guess where those motivations lie? Yeah. You know, the wife needs shoes, yeah. And that's going to drive your sales manager's action. I agree. Thank you for bringing that up. Sure. Let's talk about another thing. Let's talk about a sales process. Is that important in managing salespeople? And if so, why?
Yes, it really is. And let me give it to you straight again. I'll address the audience. If you're an owner of a company, if you're a sales manager, here are the 3 tools, and you know this, the 3 things that you need to do to build a multi-million-dollar inside sales team. They're very simple. Number 1, you need that process. You need a defined sales process. We call it a DSP. You need to be able to outline every step of your sales process from cold to close. What do 80% of your most successful sales go through? Are they 4 calls, 3 calls, 2 calls? You need to break that down. In fact, you taught me that CSO Insights did a study on those companies that have a defined sales process. They're 33% more successful than those companies that don't. Think about what a 33% increase would mean to your company. So yes, number 1, you have to define your sales process. You have to know exactly what each step of the process is and identify those individual benchmarks. This gives you a language, a common language everyone is clear on. Number 2, second step to the process, you have to develop a sales training program. Guess what? That teaches your best practices, your defined sales process. And I mean every step of the way, from picking up that first phone call, dealing with those initial brush-offs, handling and qualifying all of the getting all of the qualifications down, and then all the way through the close. You need to be able to have a training program that you give to your sales reps, and you say, hey, this teaches you our best practices, and this equips you and gives you all the tools to succeed. That empowers your reps. You need to be able to provide that. And then number 3, and then here's what we're talking about, managing. Guess what? Managing isn't babysitting. Managing is coaching. It's coaching adherence to your best practice sales process. That's what managing is. And the beautiful thing is, once you have your best practices laid out, you can now do that. You can coach adherence. And here's what I love to say. It's about disciplining. Discipline does not mean to berate and to belittle. Discipline comes from the Greek. It means to teach. the discipline of mathematics, the discipline of English, right? It means to teach. So your job as a coach is to discipline your sales reps, teach them adherence to the best practices that you've identified in your sales process. And if you do that, managing is easy, onboarding new reps is easy, success is easy, because you all know the best way to accomplish your sale.
Wonderful. I can add to that even more the value of having a defined sales process. And by the way, CSO Insight also, they rank world-class companies like 1 to 5 basically. And 4, 5 being the best, 4, and I'm probably messing this up, but you'll get the point. 4 is a company that actually has a sales process, and their salespeople follow a step-by-step process with gates for meeting each of those stages, or getting through those stages. But a stage 5 world-class sales organization is one that has a dynamic sales process. So having it on paper is one thing, but having it react to the marketplace and how your buyers change and how the personas change of the individuals that you're selling into, that's incredibly important. So that's the nirvana to get there.
And let me just tag on to that, because it goes back to what we said earlier about the sales managers getting on the phone. You talked a little bit about proofing the scripts. Hey, it's great to sit here and write out the scripts, and here's what, yeah, this ought to go great. Let me know how that goes. I'll be in the back room. No. You have to take that document, take those words, those scripts, get on the phone and use them, prove them out, find, gee, we need to make corrections here. We need to check, this didn't flow right. We need to put in a softening statement here. We need to check in with the buyer and see how that landed. That is how we bring the sales process to life. And again, that's something a manager can help your team do. And that's what I do with companies. We write scripts, we get on the phone, I get on the phone. Let's see how that, let's record that. Hey, that went well. No, we need to change that. And then once you change that document, now you have something that will work. But again, it's something that will change over time. The managers, the top reps will continue to add to that sales process, making it cutting edge and better each time.
Yep. So tying this back to one of the first things that we were talking about, you said the metrics, it's good to manage. You have to know your metrics, of course. But you also have to make sure that you're inspecting, along with that here. And a quick story to prove out what your point is there. I had a sales process at one of my previous companies, and what I found was that our closing ratios were declining. And so in re-engineering and looking through our sales process and where it stood, I was able to realize, the majority of the reasons why we were losing opportunities at this particular level was because the budget was too small. Our cost was this, they were willing to spend that. And so in re-engineering that sales process and making it dynamic, we made sure to throw in additional qualification. I say throw in. We added additional qualification questions to one of the earlier stages of the qualification process to include questions about their appetite for what they might spend. Assuming you like what you see in the next step, which is a demonstration, most of our clients are spending somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 a month. How does that sound to you? And that gave us a little taste test of whether or not we were dealing with somebody who was going to be potentially qualified from a budgetary perspective, and allowed us to walk away from more transactions earlier in the process, and therefore created more of a sales cylinder as opposed to a sales pipeline, and our closing ratios increased as a result of adding the one thing, but in the beginning. But if you don't have a defined sales process, Mike, you can't inspect along the way.
Yeah, and I loved many of the things that you said, and you're right on. Two of the things that I loved about that specific example is, number one, hey, guess what? Yes, we not only need to inspect it, but the way that we introduce techniques, for example, you used an example of what most of our clients start with. That's very important. If rather than saying, hey, is $2,500 something you can spend if you like it, or something you can afford if you like it, or if that's in the budget, no. You use an example. Hey, most of our clients start between $3,000 to $5,000. Is that something that you can handle as well? And suddenly the client is thinking, oh, most of the clients, well, I want to be like most of the clients. So that's a great example of what you're doing. And then, of course, changing that along, what did you do? You took their pulse. Inside sales, you have to take their pulse. You can't see their physical cues. Are they nodding their head? Are they with you? Are they excited? Are they disinterested? You don't know any of that. You have to ask questions. You have to check in with the prospect. So that did two things. It checked in, used a pulse taker, and then you used an example. Great, brilliant technique.
Well, thank you. Let me throw something back at you, though. What I gave you was a closed-ended question. Most of our successful clients spend somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 per month on this product. Is that a range that you're comfortable with? Totally closed in, and most of our viewers out there are probably saying, I've been taught to only ask open-ended questions. So Mike, you're wrong. How do you feel about that?
You know, it's a great point. First of all, I don't think that all the audience caught that. I would say only the top 20% caught that to start with. But you know, you're right. And I teach that in certain situations you want to ask closed-ended questions. If there's going to be a problem, if there's going to be an objection on the qualifying call, you want to bring that out in advance. You don't want the prospect to be able to hide behind that. So a closed-ended question, especially around budget in that situation, is a great qualifying question, because if your prospect can't afford it, you want to know now. You want to know now. You don't want to ask an open-ended leading question that they can hide behind. No smoke screens. You want definitive answers during the qualification stage.
Very good. Obviously, I buy into that. So let's talk about another aspect of sales leadership, Mike. And I know that your book goes into this in some detail. How can sales managers help their salespeople get into the mindset of a top performer?
Yeah.
Can they?
Well,
I mean, do you have to be a psychologist and a sales manager at the same time?
You know, truthfully, there's a great joke in psychology, and the joke is, how many psychologists does it take to change a light bulb? And I
don't know, Mike.
The answer is only one, but the light bulb has to want to change. And you know, when you're dealing with sales reps, it's somewhat the same way. Now, your job as a manager, though, is to let those people know that their lives can change, that it is possible. And there are a variety of ways that sales managers can do that. Number one, we talked about leading by example, showing them that the tools, the defined sales process, the scripts actually work if you stick to them. That's the start. You have to let your sales reps know that it is actually possible to make more money if they use the tools. So that's number one. Number two, always be positive. A sales manager's job is to affirm potential. We all have more potential than we use. It's the sales manager's job to affirm it. I'm always saying to my sales reps and companies, you can do this. You're going to make a lot of money. I used to have the sales manager who used to walk around the office, and he would look at me and he'd say, you're going to make so much money here, Mike. Honest to God, I didn't believe him. For months, he'd come over and say, Mike, you're going to make so much money here. I didn't believe him. And then I started using the scripts and the techniques. I started to make a little bit more money. When he would come to me and say, Mike, you're going to make a lot of money here, I'd think, yeah, I think I may make a lot of money here. So that's another thing. Be positive. And the third thing, create a success library. Create a lending success library of resources that help build mindsets, positive attitudes. I always like to say, hey, you know what? We all eat 3 times a day, right? How do you feel if you miss a meal, if you don't have breakfast? Then how do you feel if you don't have lunch? Maybe a little edgy, maybe a little depressed. You know, you have to feed your mind as well, that same amount of time. Encourage your reps to listen to positive motivational CDs, to read books, lead in sales meetings with quotes and stories of success. You have to create an atmosphere of success, always be positive, and then help them be successful. And then there are other things like goal setting, affirmations, helping them achieve something that they can realistically believe in. Goal setting, you don't want to place the goal too high. People check out immediately. You have incremental improvement. What would making $200 more a month mean to that sales rep? Is it a car payment? Is it a payment on something else? What is that? Just that little bit can help expand the comfort zone that the sales rep is in. And that's how we begin building a positive attitude. baby steps, little success, showing them that it's possible, being positive all the time, then giving them other resources to help build that attitude. Yes, you can build a positive mindset, but you have to once again have a structure, just like with your sales approach.
Right, absolutely. In the vein of resources, of course, we'd encourage the viewers to go to MrInsideSales.com. But what are some of the favorite books that you have read in the past that you might recommend to our audience, as well as maybe other blogs that you like?
Sure. Well, let's start with my favorite book of all times. It's a book by, as you know, Dr. Robert Anthony. You can get it on Amazon.com. It's called Beyond Positive Thinking. Great book. And that book was actually taken from an earlier book he wrote called Advanced Formula for Total Success. You can still buy it. It's out of print. You can still get them. Used copies. Highly recommended. I read that every single year. I can't get enough of that book. And it helps me remember. There's also a company out there, a website called the Edge Learning Institute, and they have a full series of motivational CDs and DVDs. Great resource as well. And then as far as motivational, there's a motivational speaker. He actually invented the religious science years ago. It's not necessarily religious, but it's a great, I love his books. There's a guy out there named Emmett Fox. Find and Use Your Inner Power is a great book because it reaffirms the truth, and his basic philosophy is whatever you focus on becomes your reality. And some of you have heard about The Secret, right? There's the book The Secret, which is
another favorite.
A great introduction out there to the law of attraction. And some people say, oh, well, that's hocus pocus and that doesn't really work. It's actually not. What it is whatever you're focused on, you're taking actions toward. And your actions generate your results. It really is as simple as that. So if you can begin focusing on the right things, you'll take actions in those areas, and those actions will get you the results.
That's exactly right. So bringing that back around to help your salespeople get into that mindset of a top producer, one of the more simple things you can do, and this sounds so like almost too simple that isn't everybody doing this already? Sticky notes are still a valuable tool that if you have your salespeople write down their daily goals and have it right there on the monitor or right there in their cube or right there on the phone, so they're evident and right there, and all they're thinking about when they see every dial they make or every lead they pull up in Salesforce.com, they're seeing their sticky note that has their goals right on it, from the minutia of the daily goals to the weekly goals to the monthly goals. It does make a difference because what you think about is what you become and what you attract, for sure.
You move towards what you dwell on all day. I mean, just think about what you're thinking about now. You're moving towards what you're dwelling on. It's absolutely true. So, you know, just to summarize it all, define your sales process, develop your training program that teaches adherence to that. And again, the sales training needs to be filled with techniques that are usable and help your reps succeed at every step of the sales process. And then coach adherence to the scripts and the best practice DSP. That's it in a nutshell.
Awesome. Thanks for summarizing for our audience. We're going to do a new segment today. We're going to do a sales job of the week. We're here in Los Angeles, and BetterWorks is one of the hottest startups in Los Angeles right now. We're hiring a national merchant sales executive to sell, evangelize, and successfully demonstrate their B2B platform to national vendors and major brands. This job is specifically targeted at individuals with 5+ years of work experience. In the job, you'll develop a strategy to sign and close major brands in a variety of categories: food, fitness, entertainment, catering, etc. This will include owning the sales process, developing the scripts, recommending a lead acquisition process, negotiating the deals, and indirectly managing a team of sales associates calling on franchises in those same categories. If you want more information and to apply, go to jobs.betterworks.com. So that's all we have for today's episode of This Week in Sales. Mike Brooks, as always, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here again.
Absolutely. And for those that, if you have additional sales questions for us, feel free to email me at askkevin@thisweekin.com, and feel free to tweet at us at SalesWeek, or like our Facebook fan page at This Week in Sales. Don't forget to download our iTunes podcast by going to iTunes. And then finally, you'll see in a few hours or so an episode on YouTube. So you can go to youtube.com/show/This Week in Sales. Thanks for joining us today on This Week in Sales.